Hey, what's up everybody? This is Leroy and welcome to my channel, 40 and Broke, where we're all about getting out of debt, saving, investing, and getting our finances under control so we can live the life we've always dreamed of. Because that's what it's all about, living the life we've always dreamed of. So, in the last Prison to Penthouse video, I left off talking about how my buddy up in Marquette, he taught me that, hey, stop beating your head against the wall, stop doing dumb stuff, and this life ain't for you. You don't want to be one of these guys that are doing life on the installment plans, or one of these guys that come in doing a relatively short bit, which I ain't going to say 11 years wasn't a short bit, but he's like, you don't want to be one of these guys that come in here with an out date and then end up getting a light bit because you get caught up in some dumb shit and you end up stabbing somebody, you end up killing somebody, you end up catching another bit while you're in the joint. He was like, this life, this shit, it's for the birds, man. He's like, you need to be out there. That's where everything's at. So without further ado, we're going to pick up where I left off the other day. So after 4 years of being up in level 5 Marquette, they transferred me down to level 4 Carson City. And that was a good joint. I met a lot of people. There was a couple people that I met down there that, I'm still in contact with these guys. Some of them are already out of prison, and I'm in contact with them out here. And there's other people that are still in prison that I'm in contact with them still. But anyway, so I get down there, and that was another one of those gravy joints that was, for a prison that was considered laid back. It was mostly old heads and stuff like that. People that were just like, I just want to do my bit. I've done all the dumb shit. I've beat my head against the wall enough. Just let me do my bit. Leave me alone. Well, then they, after a few years, they'd write in, just a younger group of people, and you just get, the younger they are, I swear, they're young and dumb, and don't give a fuck. So, basically they don't give a fuck, and so they don't care. So things just get off the chain. Now, people have asked me, like, what's the crazy stuff that you've seen in there? And, like that with the one guy getting plugged and chasing that other dude off the yard. That was a pretty good one. Marquette, I seen a couple good ones. I seen a guy get a knife put in his eye. They surrounded him and he plugged a few of them. Took a dude right in the eye. Crazy shit. And so it's like, they'll think twice about that guy. That one guy, he'll remember him for the rest of his life. But they whooped his ass, but he stabbed the hell out of quite a few of them. I'm trying to think of Carson City. Carson City was pretty laid back. There was some stuff that happened there. Like, I had a buddy that was like, he got rode out because somebody told on him. Long story short, somebody stole his radio. And so they stole his radio. And the next thing you know, we're on the yard. And it's about to jump off because he kind of thought he knew who stole it. And he basically come up and two-finger checked him right in the face. I know you stole my stuff. I want it back. And there was another guy, me and him. So the dude's ends up leaving, that he thought stole his radio, ends up leaving the rock. So me and the other guy go up and stop him. And he's like, what are you doing? He's got a cart. He's pushing his stuff over. And the one dude, I'm 6'3", and this guy towers over me. He had to have been 6'5", 6'6", something like that. The guy that was hanging out with me, that was our buddy Logie's friend. And, he was a big guy. He just starts rifling through this dude's stuff. Dude's like, what are you doing? He's like, man, shut the hell up. He's like, I'm looking for my buddy's shit. That's what I'm doing. You'll shut up until I'm done looking through your stuff. And he's like, oh, this is bullshit. But, he didn't really want to start any trouble. So, couple days later, that culminated up into standing out on the yard, posted up with me, about 3 other guys, and there was this guy and about 5 or 6 of his buddies, and the guy Logie that got his radio stolen, and the guy that he believes stole his radio, they're out there, you know, having a chit chat, and us and me and the guys I was with and the guys that he was with, I mean, we're basically there at a standoff watching each other. I remember when this kid that used to hang out, he was a young kid, man, he was 19, and we're like, hey, he comes walking up and like, hey, what's going on? And I was like, go back to your cell. He's like, what? And I'm like, go back to your cell. I was like, you come out when Logie tells you can come out. And he's like, you're kidding me, right? I was like, go back to your cell now. So he goes back to his cell. Nothing ever came of this, but man, that was watching that. Who's that guy? Nora told me about him. Nora, the stock explorer. I think his name is like End of Sentence, Jake or something like that. And he was talking about getting cut with a razor. Well, that was one of the things that I remember Logie had. He had a razor on a toothbrush, and he was, you know, he's like, I'm gonna get my radio back one way or the other. And long story short, that guy had ended up stealing his radio. Logie got it back, and it ended up being no harm, no foul. And Logie is like, I'm gonna let it slide. I'm gonna let this shit slide. But if you ever try some dumb shit on me again, you know, it's popping off, and there'll be hell to pay. I mean, it was one of those things where it really would have pulled in. It would have been real big, because you had me. It happened to Logie, who I hung out with Logie, so it drew me into it, which then in turn it would have drawn in my bunkie, because he's like, I ain't letting you ride by yourself. So you draw in my bunkie, who in turn draws in a good buddy of his, which was our neighbor, who was in a gang. And it's like, so if it draws him in, now it draws in the whole gang, and we're like, oh man, this could have tore the yard up over a radio. But so that was some of the stuff that happened. You know, that was some of the crazy stuff that happened while I was in the joint. Like, rarely did I have, I mean, it may sound like stuff was jumping off all the time, but for the most part, I just worked out. That's what I did. And so, like I was saying to Nora, you know, she was asking me about stuff like, I was watching some video with that other guy, and I was like, she was like, is that what prison was like? And I'm just like, man, I was like, I think this guy was a gangbanger. I was like, just because all the shit he was in he's constantly in some sort of shit. And she was like, yeah. Then she texted me right after that, messaged me and was like, oh yeah, I think he was a gangbanger and he gambled a lot, and he was in a gang and he gambled a lot and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, you just answered my question before I could even finish the message back. And I was like, yeah, that's why he was in drama, because he was always, you know, you're gonna be in drama because you're in situations that cause you to be in drama. I tried to steer clear of drama. Sometimes it pulled me in. There were a couple times, I mean, I had to chase a guy out of the cell. I was going to stab him with an ink pen. He was my bunkie. I kept a few sleepless nights over that because I was worried he was going to stab me in my sleep. So, but then we got out of that situation. We just swapped bunkies and found new cellmates and stuff like that. So, but another guy Chris over at, I think it's Finance Made Simple. He asked me, what kind of card games do we play? I mostly played spades and hearts, but I told him there's a funny story about poker. And if you made it this far, Chris, here's that story about the poker game. So when I was up in Marquette, level 5, I hung out with a guy named Jay. And the real big thing at the time was that Texas Hold'em. So we're playing Texas Hold'em. We weren't allowed cards up in level 5 because they considered it gambling paraphernalia. So finally they allowed us to have decks of cards, which was funny because if you were in the lower levels, you could have, you know, decks of cards, but for some reason level 5 they wouldn't let you have them. Anyways, so we're up there. They finally allow us to have playing cards out on the yard, or in general. So we're out on the yard playing cards, and at the end of the day we'd go work out, and then after yard we would play some cards. We'd play Texas Hold'em. So we each had a deck and we'd play. And what they did is they would say last hand, yard over in 5 minutes. So we'd start to get ready, because when you go to the chow hall, you had to have your pants, basically your prison uniform. You couldn't wear shorts and a t-shirt or anything like that. You had to have the prison blues on with your button-up prison blues shirt. So, and we went to chow. As soon as we got back in after yard, we're basically going to chow. So we'd start to get dressed while, just putting the clothes on over our shorts or whatever. And so the other guy would be, whoever's turn it was to shuffle, would just shuffle, and usually be like, oh, don't worry about it, don't cut it. So, and it was just the two of us, we're gambling. So we'd get to the point, well, what I didn't know was I'd have like 4 aces, and then he'd have a straight flush, and I'm like, what the hell? How do you get a straight flush? And I'm like, God damn. So this son of a bitch, what he was doing was, he had that deck of cards in his pocket already, an extra deck, and he would pull it out, and I'd be like, don't worry about cutting it, because I'd see him shuffling up the one deck, but he'd pull a different deck out, and it'd be stacked already to how he wanted it. So I'd be gambling, I'd be just bidding like crazy, betting like crazy, and I mean, I think I ended up owing him like $1,500. So I'd be like, $100, double or nothing, $200. And I'd have 4 aces, and I'd be like, $500. And then he beat me with a straight flush. And I'd start throwing the cards across the yard, and I'm all cussing him out. I'm just madder than all get out. And I'm like, what the hell? So now he's told somebody else about how he was doing this, how he had that deck of cards. And they're like, well, do you think he's cheating? I'm like, how's he cheating? I'm watching him shuffle the cards right in front of me. So, but whenever I'd, not pay attention, that's where he'd take the deck of cards out with the other deck. So basically, I ended up owning like $1,500. And he was like, I was going to tell you. He's like, but man, it was so funny watching you flip out. Oh, so yeah, there's that. That's my poker story. That's why I didn't play poker there while I was in the joint, Chris. So, man, just thinking about it makes me laugh, but man, I was so mad. So basically, some of the other things people were asking, they were asking about my mindset about when I got out of the joint and stuff like that. So I've already rambled on way too long for this video right here. So I know hardly anybody's made it to the end. But if you make it to the end, hey, give me a big thumbs up, and stay tuned for the next video in this series, where I tell you about what my mentality was like when I got out of prison, and I'll tell you about the motion sensor light, and I'll tell you about the arm wrestling contest that almost erupted into a brawl. So, all right, everybody, have a good day. And like I said, just so you know, if I can do it, you can do it. Get your finances in order. We're going to the top. I've been down at the bottom, prison to penthouse, all the way up to from the bottom all the way up to the top. That's where we're going. All right, everybody, have a good day.